In November, I visited Donbass twice, and it's an open war out there. And I think it's a very specific threat for the Ukrainian side. And in Germany, I already read arguments like, we need peace, end this war as quickly as possible. But how? The way they propose is that Ukrainian side should accept the separatists, and they should accept the new talks, Minsk Point 2, and the Ukrainian side should accept the pseudo national existence of those republics in Donetsk and Lugansk. And the key thing, this entire treaty should be constitutional. That frozen conflict, the Ukraine would not be a sovereign state anymore, and it's a very specific threat right now in those next weeks. I hope this scenario will not be fulfilled. I do hope that the Ukrainian side has enough strength that it doesn't happen. And I hope that all of us know that it's not peace. And it's not something that can be accepted.
I'll have to choose the main one. So we were talking about how the conflict between Russia and Ukraine showed a lot of disagreement between EU countries, but I think it also showed a lot of conflicts inside the EU countries. For example, recent protests in the Czech Republic against pro-Russian position of Miloš Zeman, and the same protests in Hungary against authoritarian and pro-Russian Viktor Orbán. And someone aptly described this situation as Central Europe said goodbye to communism in 1989, but yet it is still to say goodbye to Russia. How would you comment on these events? Thank you.
Well, we'll take these two questions and then that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Pavel Itzkevich from Eastbook EU portal on Eastern Partnership. I have one comment about this, what Ms. Beck said about the map of Europe, that the Western Europe is starting to learn the new map after the fall of the communism. So it's high time to learn this map because it's 20 years after that. And if we take more time, the map will change again, and it's already out of date. So one comment, please do as much as you can to learn the map. The Western societies will learn this map because it's going to be out of date. And the question to Mr. Ambassador, I have a question about the reforms in Ukraine, not in the face of the conflict in the eastern Ukraine, but the war inside the Ukraine on the various of levels between the authorities, central authorities, regional authorities, oligarchs, the new one versus old one. This because you have two wars actually, one with separatists with Russia and other one, the old regime contra new regime. Is it possible to make the reforms in this setup? Thank you.
There's one final question.
Мой вопрос будет к господину Прохорову, постараюсь очень коротко. Екатерина Гринюк, Польская академия наук. Как представитель альтернативного российского мнения, скажите, пожалуйста, из моего личного впечатления, то, что происходит сейчас, да, демократические
and the elites in Russia are passive, and they think how to not to get involved with Russia, but they don't want to change anything within Russia. How do you see this situation? Your democratic forces and your movement help Europe to have more effective and useful dialogue with those pro-democratic forces in Russia.
Very quickly on conflicts within and between member states of the European Union. I think we have to have a perspective on everything. And what I did not say is about the EU sanctions. You have to remember, if you would ask me a year ago, would it be possible that Cyprus, Greece, Hungary, UK, France, and all of the 28 member states actually sign their names under sanctions against Russia? I would say that's impossible. That is simply impossible. And now, year after, we see the sanctions being implemented. There are strong sanctions, for the time being so strong in terms of what we were able to do in this context. And yet this is a new qualitative step for the EU. We never had sanctions that would go into big power rivalry. This is what we're seeing today. But we're also seeing it in a context of a major European crisis. So I would say the elites, the EU elites, are starting to realize that their whole system, not only of values, but their functioning, is under threat. Thus, the sanctions. And this is a big step in EU solidarity, and it should be acknowledged. But this step has not been acknowledged among the EU societies. And I think this is where the homework has to be done. That the elites need to transfer the sense of urgency and the sense of potential threat to the European Union and the transatlantic system. So let's also have this view that there are positive, but there's a lot of homework still to be done.
Thanks very much. The final two was Mary-Louise Beck and then the ambassador.
I think there's only one idea which I can hand over to you now, which I have to hand over to us in Germany ourselves. When we say we need peace, and actually we need peace at any price. That's what is the truth. We need peace at any price. I think a country like Germany, where the aggression has come from, has to start asking themselves why there is so little understanding for those who defend themselves. And this is really what is making me nervous. And I think we have to go back and looking at our own history again. That's the conclusion which I start learning during the last month about my country.
Yeah, so answering to the question about the reforms in Ukraine, I should say that it is possible to implement the reforms, also if there is a war in the East. But that actually, of course, it will take more energy, resources, financial resources to fight and to support military, Ukrainian military in the East. But of course, the successful reforms in Ukraine, it's an extra tool to fight with Russia. And it's important also to give a chance for implementing local government reform in Ukraine and giving more power to the regions. Of course, it's not the answer to the Lugansk and Donetsk, the separatist republics, because they don't want to listen and don't want to accept the proposals that were given to them of having more rights. They simply do not follow or do not commit themselves to the obligations they took in Minsk. but it's one of the I think one of the major reforms in Ukraine is the local government reform, but at the same time of decentralization of powers from central power to the local governments, which at the same time might show the importance of the regions, and at the same time will strengthen the regions. So answering to your question, if possible to implement reforms, I think yes.
Thanks very much to the panel. We're going to continue over lunch and after lunch. So I'm sorry to the panelists and anybody else who had any questions, but lunch is waiting. Thank you.